Hello everyone, and welcome to Get Stuff Done Even When You're Not Working. We thought that would be a fun title today to talk about Microsoft Power Automate, which is formerly known as Flow, which is basically building workflows. And today is a little bit, while we're going to cover the basics, today is definitely an illustration as you start playing, is that there's a lot of trial and error going into building different automations. So it's going to be exciting. I've got a few just that are built in or simple basic flows and Power Automate flows to show you and illustrate how to create them, how they tie into other things that we've been doing. So for instance, Stephanie, a couple sessions ago, we talked about Microsoft Forms. And then we talked about how you might be able to embed a form into a training video that's embedded in Microsoft Stream. Well, today, one of the things I'm going to show you is how to automatically get notified when people take a quiz after they've watched a video. So there's some cool things that we've done there. There's definitely a little bit more, but that's one of the examples. We're trying to tie some of these pieces together in the different sessions. So while we're going to cover the basics of Microsoft Power Automate today, I would definitely say that this is a little bit more of an advanced session just due to the nature of the way Power Automate integrates with the different pieces. So with that said, my name is Nathan Austin, by the way. I'll be presenting, and Stephanie Kingsley is behind the scenes producing. Thank you, Stephanie, for your work behind the scenes. Additionally, Stephanie is going to be monitoring the Q&A panel. So if you have questions, please go ahead and start posting them. She'll also post some notifications as well. If we cover a certain reference, a presentation, for example, she might be linking those for you in the Q&A panel. So stay tuned for that. But we will be covering all the content and then opening up for questions. But at any moment when if you might have a question, please go ahead and post in the Q&A panel when you're thinking about it, so we can get right to that at the end. So, okay, with that said, we are going to basically, again, it's the basics of some workflow. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the key foundational building blocks of Power Automate. That's in the overview section. Give you a couple sample problems that Power Automate can help solve, and then we're going to go in and illustrate some of those automations and creation of those, as well as how you see them play out in notifications and otherwise. So, and at the end, that's where we'll hit Q&A and some recommended next actions. Okay. As if you've watched the videos before, one of the things we'd like to touch on is 1 minute about Mytech. We are not a training company. That's not our purpose. Our purpose is to really help small and medium businesses use technology better and leverage it to the best of their abilities to achieve their goals. Over the last 20 years of being in business, we've developed and we understand a proven IT strategy that we know can achieve proven results and consistent results for our clients. While we understand that IT is not all of the problems that we all face in business, it's only just one of them. Our goal is to help you at least remove that challenge from your plate, because with a quality IT foundation and infrastructure, you can be more adaptable to other business challenges that you face and enable you to spend time on those. Our goal is we try and coach our team to make IT easy for you, our client. That doesn't always make IT easy for us, but that's our goal. And if we do not achieve that, which we don't always achieve it, we always ask that you let us know so it's our opportunity to improve. Put this all together as far as the proven IT strategy, collaborating with your business goals and initiatives, and together we know our clients can achieve 4 times more value and productivity from their IT investments. Enough about Mytech, let's dig in. All right, so we'll go into the overview, as I mentioned, as well as some sample use cases. So first and foremost, it's important to understand that Power Automate and workflow. If you're familiar with workflow, this is going to seem really simple to you. If you're not familiar with workflow, this will be a nice, again, primer for going through the rest of the session. So first and foremost, to build a workflow, it's think about the repetitive or manual tasks that you may have, right? Some of those things that you might have to do on a weekly basis or on a daily basis, where you're trying to there may be some manual effort that you're involved in or that you're having to do in order to accomplish a task. Think about what those triggers might be and something you might be able to automate. So once you think about those things, the way Power Automate is built is it has triggers, really meaning some event happens. You can build some of the Power Automate flow that's not necessarily around an event. It could be around a certain time frame where it runs once a day or something like that. But typically there's a trigger, something happens, which will initiate the flow. And then you have connectors, which means, well, what do you want the trigger to do? So this event happens, we want it to email someone, or we want it to post it to Teams, or we want to grab something from Twitter. So that's a connector, that's a catalyst, and publish it to an Excel database. We want to update our CRM with the contact information. There's things like that that you can do by using Microsoft connectors as far as Microsoft applications, as well as other third-party integrated applications. And we'll show a little bit of that today, but mainly we'll be focusing on the Microsoft applications for the basics for today. And then once you've identified the trigger and the connectors, well, what do you want it to do? What's the action you want it to take? So as far as the integration, so those are some of the basics. Microsoft does have some templates if you open up Power Automate in your browser, there are lots and lots of templates and lots of connectors that are already built in there for you that are a good place to start. So, but that's just kind of an overview of Power Automate. So with that said, let's go into some of just the basics and maybe give you a couple examples of what you can do. So inside of Power Automate, a couple of simple things are that we like to use it for, that we've used it for, is building an approval workflow. So actually one of them is automatically built in to Power Automate. And there's other ones you can build that are where you can build a workflow that's a trigger. There's ones you can initiate manually, and there's ones that can kick off automatically based on the trigger. So there's a couple of those that we'll look at. And one of them I can't demonstrate, but I'll show you because we don't have this is in the demo tenant, we don't have all the pieces built out like you would in a typical organization. So I'll illustrate what I mean by that for a moment. The other one is we'll show you how to send notifications to your team if something gets updated. For instance, in change management, if you update a template or create a new template, there's some notifications we'll show you there. As well as finally, well, what if a form is completed? That's what I was illustrating earlier. Say you create a quiz, or if you have someone internally or externally fill out a form or a survey and you want to get notified of that survey completion or that form completion. That's just a couple different examples that we'll show today for some business use cases. Okay. With that said, these are just a couple examples talking about document management and change management, and then also looking at how it integrates with form completion or quizzes or surveys that you might be using internally or externally. All right, with that said, let's go ahead and dig into a demonstration of Power Automate basics. So I'm going to click here and show the taskbar, and I'm going to move to the browser. So I've opened up a couple things already, and I'll illustrate, I'll talk you through a scenario. So I always like to talk about, if you just go to office.com and log in, you'll have access to all the tools that you're currently licensed to. If you don't see the tool here, you can click on the All Apps section here. You can also navigate over here to the waffle and click down, and there's the All Apps capability here. So for example, Power Automate is right here. I've already got that window open. So we'll go through some of that. But I'm going to run through the scenario here of some approvals. So I decided to use our Change Advisory Board site, because this is where the theory is we collaborate on changes, and I want to be able to initiate an approval. So I'm going to come into this document really quick, just as an illustration, and I'm going to make a comment. I'm just going to add a comment down here under client updates, and I'm going to add a new comment and say, I would like to update this section before the next quarter. So I could either put a comment over here, or I could also, one of the other things you can do if you go into review, you can select track changes. And I actually do recommend, this is one of the 2 ways we recommend making changes, because then I could make a suggestion here and I could add, this is what I would like to add. And that way, not only do you have a comment, where we can collaborate, but also you can see the track changes. So hypothetically speaking, say I did that, it's already saved. I'm going to go ahead and close it. And then what I'm going to do is say, I'm going to select this document. And now if you notice up here in the top, there's a Power Automate option here. And if you, I'm gonna illustrate when you select this, it says request sign off. But if I don't have a document selected and I click Power Automate, it doesn't show that option. So I actually want to specifically select this option because this is the file I edited, and I want to come up here and say I want to request sign off. So that way, I'm sorry about that. Request sign off, it just killed that section. So this is something that's automatically built in to your SharePoint site from a Power Automate perspective. At this point, I'm going to say, I'm going to send it to myself because I am the approver or the of this section as far as the authorizer. Say, please review the changes to this document and approve or reject. Thanks. And then I can click Run Flow. So this is an example of where it's a flow that is automatically built, but you have to manually initiate it, right? So that's one way, and that works just fine. So notice it starts the flow over here, and actually it gave me an update that I've got a flow, and I'll show you where that pops up. It also pops up in my email. So that's one of the things that I need to get this, sorry, to the I don't want to show that. So it also pops up in my email. So notice that the workflow says, hey, please approve this. And it sent me an email of that flow, and it linked it right to the document. So I can open up that document, click on that link, and it comes right to that document where it shows me the red line. And I can also click up here on comments too. So that's where I can quickly and easily go in here from a notification perspective, from a workflow perspective. Sorry, I want to come back in here. So that's where I selected this and I manually did it. Now, one of the things that I would prefer, but we just don't have the way this tenant is set up for us, this account is set up, it doesn't give us the ability to do it, is I'm going to come in here, I want to actually create a flow. And one of the things you can say request manager approval for a selected file. So you can actually, when I select this flow, it's kind of interesting. So you can start with the template. It basically builds out the flow completely for you. It says, hey, this is going to use all of these notifications and triggers. It says this flow will connect to all of these options. If there are any issues with these down here, for instance, if you're not logged in or it's not authenticating correctly, it'll show an action required, and you can click on it and it'll ask you to take the action that it's needed. As far as, let's say, if you're connecting to a third-party application and maybe you need to input your Twitter account or your Google account or whatever that might be. And if I created a flow here, so it takes a moment for it to create. It's creating the flow and building it out, and it's going to pop up the different pieces of the flow. I'm going to click on edit. So up here, and you'll see that this is built out. I'm actually not going to use this, but notice it says condition file not found. One of the problems is it's trying to find my manager, and there's an error here. So, and that's because we don't have the manager function set up in our Active Directory. But this would be a way where you could set this up, and instead of having it, so for instance, what I had to come in here and do, instead of actually having to select request sign off, I can actually build the flow so it automatically does it. So I can say once this file is updated, I can then initiate, hey, is there an approval, or I can send a notification that it's been updated and ask for approval. So those are something you can do there. Notice the sign off status is noted here as pending. So, all right, so from the standpoint of creating notifications for approvals, once you go into your Power Automate, I'm actually going to go into Flow, and notice on my dashboard here, it says I've got requests for approval. So I can approve or reject these requests right here. I've also received an email that's linking to the information. So if I want, I'm just going to click approve. This is the one I just did today, just now. So I'm going to click approve that change. And I can add comments. That change looks good to me. I can hit confirm, and now you'll notice that this document, when I go back to that repository, I'm going to refresh it really quick. that this one has now been approved. So it actually kind of captures that it's been approved or not. So that's kind of a cool Power Automate workflow. Again, the trick with the one that's built in is that you have to specify the person that you'd like to approve, whereas ideally, I think you'd want to build the structure where it's automated. So you're actually identifying who's the manager of this section so that the manager is automatically notified, or whoever the appropriate person is automatically notified built into the workflow. But it works relatively the same. So, okay, so the next one I wanted to touch on is now let's say we've updated this document and I want to move it and update it in the team that's going to use this document. So where I've gone now is, so let's say it's the, I went to the sales team SharePoint site. Again, I'll click here into Teams as an example. And I'm going to go to the sales team site and I'm going to post it to the file section. So, and then I'm just going to open this up as a in SharePoint. So I'm going to click here, open in SharePoint, which is the same as I had open. But one of the things I did here is I actually created a workflow that updates whenever a new document is added or a document is edited. So what I did is I actually going to come in here and I'm going to upload a document. Let's say I created a new template. So I'm going to click Files. I'm going to go to my desktop here. And I actually created, this is a new document template. So I'm just going to select that, click Open. So now this has been updated, and I'm gonna let it run for a minute because I've created a workflow, and if it works correctly, which I hope so, I tested it, it did, it should give me some notifications that a new document template has been added. The other thing that I'm going to do is, because I created the workflow to do two things, I wanted it to notify this team when a new document was added or an existing document was edited. So for instance, I'm going to go ahead and open this new Word document. And now, as you see, I was doing some testing, and I'm going to say this is a change to test the workflow in Power Automate. So the reason why I did that is because how often when you might update a template and you forget to communicate with the team that a new template's available or that new information is there. So that's one of the things that why this workflow would makes a lot of sense. It just takes a little bit of the burden off the person who's updating it. It's oftentimes the manager or the subject matter expert for that area of your organization. So now that document, notice is auto-saved. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. And what I've done is I've created a workflow. So I'm going to go up into my flows, and I'll give you an example. So if I go to my flows, so I went to Power Automate, clicked on my flows, and notice I created this workflow here, which says new or updated template. So I'm going to click into that. And actually, when I click in, it gives me a bunch of information when it's run. The test succeeded or succeeded down here. I'm going to give it some time for it to run on the two changes I just made, because it should have two edits that should come through. And then, but I want to click Edit up here. So this will allow me to show you the creation or the steps or the built-in components of this flow. So it's relatively simple. I basically just created this option, and I'll show you how to create this. When a file is created or modified, and I basically chose, this is the team, the sales team site, and that automatically populates when you click this drop down. And then I said, well, in the documents folder, and then once anything is changed or modified in this folder, I want it to send an email. And I chose to send an email to the sales team, so I use the sales team distribution list. And I send it to myself, and with the body that says new or updated template. And then, for instance, I'd like you to notice that it allows you to add dynamic content. So these things here, I didn't type them in. I typed out, this is a new or updated document named file name with extension. So I basically just came down here and notice there's this option that says file name with extension. So that's what I added there. I added the full folder path, the full path, as well as I scroll down, I added a link to the item. So that way, when this email gets sent to the team, they actually, this is the name of the document that was updated or saved or created new, as well as a link to the item so they can open it right from within their email. So I didn't make any changes, so I'm not going to save that, but I'm hoping if I go back that the flow, please run again. because I'd like to show you that. All right, well, it hasn't run yet, so I'll show you one of the other things. So when I come up here, the other thing that you can do, what I like, is that the flow checker, this is something to be aware of, is that if there are any errors in your workflow, it'll actually tell you. It'll tell you if there are errors, because it really won't let you save it unless you resolve the errors. So that's kind of nice that it actually gives you an indicator if your flow is actually built correctly or in a successful way. The other thing that I like is this test option over here. So if you click on test, you can either perform the trigger action or that way you're not having to flip back and forth. You can actually, if you've already run it, you can use the data from a previous run. So if I select that, it'll actually give me the option. And notice it says test succeeded, test succeeded. It gives me the option of picking from a previous run, and I can select that and I can hit test. Allows me to successfully test the flow, and notice what's going to do. Your flow ran successfully, so basically it tested it for me. So instead of having to execute the action, it actually tested it for me. So I'm going to give that a couple minutes to test to run because I should receive some new emails. If I come down here, it shows the test succeeded, but it hasn't run automatically yet. Now the other thing, so I'm going to come back to that just as I'm going to let the Power Automate, because the flow doesn't. It does take time to run from time to time. So now I want to show you one other thing. So the other option that we talked about is, let's say in the sales team, I actually posted this scrolling up here because I tested this. I said, hey, team, there's a weekly short training video that I'd like you to take. Please watch this and take the quiz at the end. So, because one of the challenges that we've had people ask us is, well, how do you know if someone watched the training video? Or how do I know as a manager that this person watched it? Or how can I track it? Well, so I'm going to click on this. I'm going to open up Stream, and it's going to load the video. I'm not going to I'm going to pause it because I don't want it to play. But if you notice, I've actually embedded a video down here. So I'm going to click on this, and it's going to take me right to the quiz. Now, what will automatically happen if you watch one of the past videos is that if once the video gets to that point in the training video, it'll actually populate. It'll automatically go to the quiz. So you can set the time in the video where a quiz will pop up. So I created the quiz saying adding and renaming a tab in Teams quiz. And what I want to do is I'm going to select that one and no, and click submit. So I just answered the quiz really quick. It's answering the quiz right now, and then I'll give you an example of, so if I was the manager, I want to get notified of that. So how can we create a workflow for that? So I'm actually going to go to my flows. I'm going to create a flow over here. Click OK because I'm OK with changing one. I want to do an automated flow. And I want to say a new quiz submission completion. Search all triggers. So notice one of the first ones up here is when a new response is submitted in Microsoft Forms. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. Click create. I'm going to pick a form. So the form is adding and renaming a tab in Teams. So I did that. So now I pick the form, new step. I actually want to, you can see a lot of the third-party templates and triggers that you can build in. So if I just click Outlook, I want to send an email, it'll quickly search. I'll select Outlook. What I want to do is I want to send an email. So these are the different actions you can take. I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm just going to say send an email. And then I'm going to specify, I want this to go to myself because this is the quiz that I created. I also want to notify Stephanie. So I'm going to add her to the list. New quiz has been completed. Okay. All right. So now what I want to do is say, team, a new quiz has been submitted. Click here, view the results. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use a hyperlink. So that way, when I get this quiz, I can just automatically link to it right in my email. So for instance, in order to do that, so I'm going to go back over here to my Microsoft Home. Okay, I'm going to click on my forms. And here is my adding and renaming a team quiz here. So I'm going to click on that. And I'm going to come over here to share. That's where I can then provide links. So there's a couple different links I can do this. So for instance, if I want to share, which has view, which allows me to collaborate, meaning they can view and edit, I can use this link. Or if you click on the responses tab over here, you can actually, this little breadcrumb actually gives me the option to say get summary link, and that will only allow the person that clicks on this link access to this page. So I'm going to click summary link, and I'm going to hit copy. Then I'm going to go back to my workflow that I'm creating over here, and I'm going to say click here to view the results. I'm going to try and get all of the C there, and then I'm going to click on this little link icon and hit paste and hit add. Sorry that's, I should minimize that there. All right. Okay, and hit save. Notice the flow checker did not give me any errors, which is good. So now I should be able to send Stephanie and myself an email. I'm actually going to go back up to this stream video. I'm going to hit submit another response. You can also limit it to the same person can't submit another response, by the way, but for the sake of this demonstration, I wanted to do that. So I can say how to add a team, the breadcrumbs next to the channel, which is the wrong answer. Can you rename a tab in teams? The answer is yes. So I'm going to click on that, click submit. So now I should be able to, once I click submit and that shows that it's been submitted, I should receive an email notification that a new form has been completed with a link. So I'm going to go back up here to edit flows because I want to go back to my flows so I can look at all my flows. And yes, because I've already saved it. So now I've got this new quiz completion and newer update template available. I'm going to click on this one to see if it's run yet. There we go. It just ran. So you saw that the updated, it happened just a minute afterwards. So I'm actually going to my email. And so now we should have multiple notifications of things that have been approved. So one, I got an email to say, please approve. I got an email that was approved. I received an email that says there's a newer uploaded document named this is a new document template. So notice I did that so I can specifically go to that document with a link. So I'm going to click on that. So that takes me right to that document. Oh, 404 not found. Great. That's good to know. That's trial and error, everybody. This is the example that the document should get should update that link. And then I got that's weird that one came in twice. And then here's the one that says new Word document. This is the one that I updated. So this is the one that I actually added new. And this is the one that I actually updated as far as, oh, that's why this old one didn't work. I know why, here, because I ran a test first. So that one, there we go. That's why I got the error, because when I ran the test, I should have been patient. So these two here were when I ran the test. So these are the ones that I added because the new document template and then the new document that's been updated. So I click on this and you'll see this is the change that I had made. So it doesn't highlight the change, it just takes you right to the document that did change. So there's that. And then the last thing, when I go into my email, I also received another one saying, hey, a new quiz has been submitted. Click here to review the results. So I can click right on there. And here are the results of the quiz. So these are just some simple ways of being able to create notifications, create approvals, notify yourself if something's been changed, notify your team if something has been changed, get notified and be able to view the results of quizzes or surveys that have come through with Power Automate. So there's a lot of trial and error that goes into it, and you do have to have some patience as far as like letting that flow run, because this is running across a system that's across the internet, and anyone in the world is using O365. So sometimes there are minutes of delays. It shouldn't be much more than that, but it is good to keep in mind that it doesn't always happen exactly instantaneously. So with that said, one of the things I'd like to challenge you all to think about is, are there things in your world that you can that are repetitive tasks that happen on a regular basis that you're doing manually? Are there notifications that you can automate? Are there do you want to protect against a file getting updated and you not be aware of it in case you want to make sure there's some sort of approval process? These are all the things you can build in and way more into Power Automate. If there's a few of those you can think of right now or things you want to try, go ahead and write them down. Love for you to try and take some baby steps in the next 24 to 48 hours. And stay tuned for Thursdays, the next session, when we're going to dig into taking some of this data that we've been talking about and how we can build it into a Power BI dashboard. So that's going to be the next session on Thursday. And with that said, I really appreciate everyone for attending today. And hopefully there was at least some tips and tricks that you're able to see how you can build some automation and actually get work done technically when you're not even working. So thanks a lot. For those of you who need to drop off, we'll see you next time. And for those who can stick around, let's open it up for questions.